Sold to the Lycan Prince, by Sarah Cooper. Prologue. Aria has spent her life hiding her power, hiding her past, and hiding from those who would pay a fortune to own her. But when she is sold at a black market auction to Prince Kael Nightborn, the feared Lycan heir, her world collapses. Kael is cold, brutal, and destined to be king. He doesn't buy slaves, but he buys her. Because Aria carries something rare, something dangerous, something he needs. But the moment he touches her, the bond ignites. Secrets unravel. Destiny awakens. And Aria realizes she wasn't sold to a monster, she was sold to her fated mate. A mate she cannot trust. A mate who would kill for her. A mate who may destroy the world to keep her. Chapter 1: The Auction. The chains around Aria's wrists bit into her skin with every step. Her bare feet stumbled over the cold stone floor as the guards dragged her down a narrow hallway lit only by flickering red lamps. The deeper they went, the thicker the air became, hot, sour, filled with sweat, fear, and the metallic sting of blood. A place where hope came to die. Aria kept her chin lifted, even though her body trembled. She would not let them see fear. Fear only made them smile. Beyond the hallway, a massive underground chamber opened up. Hundreds of eyes stared at the stage, wolves, Lycans, dark-cloaked nobles, and criminals from every corner of the kingdom. They had come for the auction. For the trade of flesh. For slaves. For her. A guard shoved her forward. Aria caught herself before she fell, lifting her head just enough to glance at the faces waiting to bid. Predators. All of them. A hush settled over the crowd as the auctioneer stepped forward. Lot 37, he announced with a grin that showed too many teeth. Rare bloodline. Untouched. Perfect obedience. He grabbed Aria's chin roughly and forced it upward. Take a good look. Aria jerked her face away, jaw tight. Perfect obedience? He had no idea who she was. Where she came from. What she carried. But they would kill her if they found out. The auctioneer sighed loudly. Feisty. They always pay more for the feisty ones. Laughter rippled across the room. Aria closed her eyes for one final moment of silence, one last prayer. She didn't pray to be saved. She prayed only for the strength to endure whatever happened next. Then the door at the back of the chamber blew open. A gust of cold air swept in, sharp, clean, commanding. The hair on Aria's arms stood on end. Every voice in the room went quiet. Boots echoed against the stone as a tall figure entered, flanked by warriors in black armor. The crowd bowed instantly, some dropping to their knees as if afraid to make eye contact. The air changed around him, thick with power. Prince Kael Nightborn. Future Lycan king. Feared monster of the north. Aria's heart slammed painfully against her ribs. She had heard the stories, alpha strength beyond reason, a temper that could burn cities, a wolf so dangerous he was forbidden to shift within populated lands. And now he walked straight toward the stage. The auctioneer swallowed hard. Why, Your Highness, an unexpected honor. Kael didn't respond. His storm-gray eyes were fixed on Aria, unblinking, unreadable, cold. She felt stripped, exposed, as if he saw straight into her bones. Start the bidding, Kael commanded, voice low and dangerous as thunder. Yes, Your Grace. Of course, the auctioneer squeaked, scrambling. 2,000. 3. 6. 10. Numbers flew across the room. Aria tried not to tremble, but her body betrayed her. She hated this. Hated being stared at like an animal. Hated knowing that whoever won would own her life. 50,000. Gasps erupted. That number could buy an entire village. The auctioneer's eyes lit up. 50,000. Going once. 200,000, Kael said. Silence. Every head snapped toward him. Even the guards froze. The auctioneer blinked rapidly. Why, Your Highness, did you say? Kael lifted one eyebrow. Must I repeat myself? The man shook his head quickly. And no. No, Your Highness. He raised his hand high in the air. Sold. To His Royal Highness, Prince Kael Nightborn. Aria felt the world tilt. He had bought her? For that price? Why? Kael stepped onto the stage. The guards parted instantly, terrified. He approached her with slow, controlled steps, like a predator approaching prey. Up close, he was even more devastating. Sharp jawline, broad shoulders, every movement carved in power. His scent hit her next, cold forest, night frost, and something darker beneath. Her knees nearly buckled. Kael reached out and wrapped his fingers around the chain between her wrists. It should have hurt. Instead, a strange heat slid across her skin. Power. Ancient, unsettling power. He lowered his head slightly, voice a soft warning only she could hear. You belong to me now. Aria's breath caught. And in that moment, the chains around her wrists didn't feel nearly as dangerous as the man holding them. Chapter 2, The Prince's Property. The carriage ride to the Nightborn Palace was silent, save for the thrum of hooves against cobblestone. Aria's wrists burned where the chains had bitten, but she said nothing. She had learned long ago that speaking rarely softened hands like Kael's. The palace loomed ahead, black stone twisting toward the sky like jagged teeth. Torches flickered in the evening wind, casting long shadows across the courtyard. Guards lined every wall, eyes sharp, muscles taut, alert to the slightest threat. And all of them, without exception, bowed as Kael entered. Kael did not bow. He did not speak. His storm-gray eyes remained fixed on her, unyielding and dangerous. Even in the quiet of the carriage, she could feel the weight of his presence pressing against her chest. The air around him was colder than winter, yet it seemed to pulse with heat. You will follow my orders, Kael said, voice low, measured, like ice sliding across steel. No hesitation. No excuses. No secrets. Yes, Your Highness, Aria whispered, though she refused to look at him directly. The last time she had done that, she'd nearly lost herself in his stare. He did not reply. Only the faint click of his boots against the carriage floor marked his passage towards silence. By the time they arrived, the palace gates had already shut behind them. Inside, the grand hall was even colder than the night outside. Marble floors stretched endlessly, polished to a blinding sheen. Statues of Lycans in midshift glared down, eyes glinting with carved fury. It was a home built for a king, or a monster. Kael led her through winding corridors, each one darker than the last. Aria swallowed hard. Every instinct screamed to flee, but there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And more than fear, there was something else, an unshakable pull she could not name. Something ancient and insistent, tugging at her blood, whispering in the quiet of her mind. Finally, he stopped in front of a massive door carved from black oak. He motioned her forward. "This will be your room," Kael said. His hand lingered on the doorframe longer than necessary. "Do not step out of it without permission." Aria's throat went dry. "I understand." Kael's eyes narrowed. Not with anger, at least not entirely. There was something else in their depths. Possession. Hunger. A darkness that promised both protection and pain. "You belong to me now," he said again, repeating the words like a decree that would bind her. His fingers brushed the chain still hanging from her wrist. It should have felt like punishment, but instead, a shiver ran through her, raw and unyielding. Aria shivered, trying to steady herself. Her heart pounded like a drum, threatening to give her away. "You will obey," Kael continued, circling her with slow precision. Each step was measured, each movement deliberate. "Because I will not ask twice. And you will learn quickly that disobedience has consequences." She swallowed, voice barely audible. "Yes, Your Highness." He paused, standing just behind her. The scent of him, the cold, metallic forest of his presence, overwhelmed her senses. It was impossible to ignore. Her pulse raced, fear tangled with something she dared not name. Kael's hand rested briefly on the small of her back as he stepped toward the door. "Remember," he murmured, voice low, like a shadow falling over her soul, "you belong to me now, always." The door closed behind her with a final, echoing thud. The world outside vanished. Aria was alone in the room, yet the memory of his gaze burned hotter than any fire. And in the silence, she realized with a mix of terror and fascination, she had never truly been free. Not in body. Not in mind. Not in heart. Aria sat on the edge of the cold, stone-like bed, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Every nerve screamed that danger was near, and yet a strange heat lingered in her veins, a pulse that mirrored his own. The Lycan Prince had claimed her, and in that moment, she understood, there was no escaping Kael Nightborn. Chapter 3: A Dangerous Defiance. The morning light was pale through the tall, arched windows of her room, but it offered no comfort. Aria dressed quickly, her hands trembling slightly, not from cold, but from the memory of Kael's gaze, still burned into her mind. She had to survive. That was all that mattered. The moment she stepped into the hallway, Kael was there. Standing silently, motionless, as if he had been carved from the shadows themselves. His storm-gray eyes fixed on her, measuring, judging, dangerous. "You leave your room without permission," he said, voice low and lethal. "Explain." Aria straightened her spine. Her defiance surprised even herself. "I needed air," she said, voice firm. "I am not a child to be caged." A flicker of something dark passed over Kael's features. His wolf stirred. Aria felt it, the pull, the raw, primeval energy beneath his skin. His body tensed, nostrils flaring, eyes narrowing. "You forget yourself," he said, each word deliberate, slicing through the air like a blade. "I forget nothing," Aria shot back, refusing to bow her head. "I am not yours to command, Kael Nightborn. I will not obey blindly." The room seemed to pulse with tension. Kael's wolf reacted violently, hidden but unmistakable. A low growl rumbled from his chest, vibrating through the floor, through the walls, through her very bones. He took a step closer. Each footfall was thunder. Aria tried to back away, but the hallway ended at a cold stone wall. Her heart thudded. Her body screamed at her to run, but her legs refused. Kael's hand shot out, pinning her against the wall with frightening speed. His palm pressed against the stone near her head, the other near her waist, trapping her like a caged animal. She could feel the heat of his body, his breath brushing her ear, hot and scented with the forest, the night, the wolf that prowled within him. "You are mine," he whispered, voice low enough that only she could hear, rough, dangerous, almost unbearable. "No one else touches you. No one else looks at you. Do you understand?" Aria's chest rose and fell in rapid bursts. She should have been terrified, she was, but beneath the fear, something else stirred. Something wild, like a spark in her veins she could not deny. "I understand," she whispered, voice trembling, but not with submission. With defiance. Kael's gray eyes darkened, storm clouds of raw power simmering beneath the surface. He lingered for a heartbeat, close enough that her heart raced and her mind swirled with thoughts she dared not name. Then, without warning, he stepped back. Cold. Calculated. Cruel. "You are reckless," he said, voice sharp, leaving a trail of tension in the air. "I should break you for that." But, he paused, and his lips curled in the faintest smirk, one that sent a shiver down her spine. "I will allow it this time." Aria pressed herself against the wall, breathing hard, chest heaving. Her hands trembled, heart pounding. His presence still filled the hallway, even though he had walked away. Even though he had left her alone. The wolf inside him had reacted, and she had survived it. But she knew, deep in the marrow of her bones, that survival had come at a cost. Kael Nightborn had marked her, even if only with his presence. And that mark would not be ignored. Chapter 4: The Forbidden Room. The palace was a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. Aria had wandered the halls countless times, mapping their twists and turns in her mind, yet she had never seen the door hidden behind the faded tapestry in the east wing. Her fingers brushed the fabric almost absent-mindedly, until the air shifted. A draft, cold, ancient, and unnatural, slipped through the wall as though inviting her forward. Heart pounding, she reached for the hidden latch behind the tapestry. The door creaked open. A staircase spiraled downward into darkness, the scent of old parchment, candle wax, and something metallic hitting her first. Aria hesitated, but curiosity overrode caution. She had always been drawn to secrets, even dangerous ones. The stairs ended in a large chamber, unlike any room she had seen in the palace. The walls were lined with towering shelves, stacked with dusty tomes bound in leather, etched in symbols she could not decipher. Candles flickered along the walls, casting eerie shadows that danced like living things. At the center of the room, a single painting hung on the far wall, illuminated by a beam of light that seemed to come from nowhere. Aria's breath caught. It was her. The girl in the painting had the same long, dark hair, the same sharp cheekbones, the same eyes that seemed to pull at her soul. Most striking was the mark on her shoulder, a birthmark, crescent-shaped, identical to the one Aria had always hidden beneath her clothing. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She reached out instinctively, fingers brushing the cool glass of the frame. A whisper of wind swept through the room, carrying voices she could almost understand, old, powerful, commanding. Lycan prophecy, it seemed. Secrets older than the palace itself. "You have come," the whisper seemed to say. Aria staggered back, startled, yet unable to tear her gaze from the painting. Her blood thrummed with a strange energy. Something inside her stirred, dormant power she had never felt before. And then she understood. The girl in the painting wasn't just a memory. She was a warning. A promise. A destiny that Aria herself was entwined with. Her hand shook as she pressed her palm to her chest, over her own birthmark. The warmth radiating from it was unlike anything she had ever felt, as if it recognized the girl in the painting and called to her across centuries. Aria's heart raced, and a single thought burned in her mind: I am not who I thought I was. And somewhere in the shadows of the forbidden chamber, the Lycan blood in her whispered back. Chapter 5: The Prince's Obsession. The palace corridors were alive with whispers and shadows, yet Kael moved through them like a storm no one dared challenge. Aria had no idea he was watching her, not with his human eyes, not with the wolf lurking beneath the surface, senses sharper than any mortal's. Every step she took, every flick of her hair, every quiet movement in the hall sent ripples through the air, and Kael felt them. He didn't know why she fascinated him so, why his wolf stirred violently every time she was near, but fascination it was, sharp and consuming. Aria made her way to the garden, drawn by the pale morning light. She had to breathe, to feel something other than fear, to remind herself she was still alive. But as she stepped between the hedges, Kael's shadow stretched over her like a storm. She didn't see him at first, but he saw everything. The subtle way she tilted her head, the tension in her shoulders, the way she hugged herself as if guarding her own heart. Then a male guard, or perhaps one of the nobles, entered the garden, eyes wandering too long, lips curling in a smug, possessive way as they rested on her. Kael's wolf stirred violently, claws itching, fangs nearly bared. Move away from her, Kael whispered through clenched teeth, low and dangerous enough to make the man freeze mid-step. The male didn't move. Kael's pupils narrowed to silver slits, and the air around him thickened. The guards at the edges of the garden flinched instinctively. Now. Kael's voice was no longer human, it carried the rumble of the beast within, a warning that could shatter bone and sanity alike. The man stammered, finally retreating backward, his eyes wide with terror. Kael exhaled slowly, wolf claws retracting under his skin, but only slightly. His body still throbbed with possessive hunger, a pull that would not be ignored. Aria had noticed him then, standing in the shadow of the hedges, and her breath hitched. His presence was overwhelming, dangerous, intoxicating. Her heart raced despite herself, caught in the gravity of the alpha who claimed her without words. Kael stepped closer, moving silently until he was just behind her. She could feel the heat radiating from him, a pressure on her skin that made her pulse spike. He didn't touch her, but his shadow alone pressed against her shoulder like a brand. "You belong to me," he whispered, low and almost feral. The words were a reminder, a warning, a claim. His wolf's presence lingered around her, pressing, demanding, insistent. Aria swallowed hard, her stomach twisting with a mixture of fear and something far more dangerous, desire. She didn't understand it, couldn't name it, yet it surged through her with every heartbeat. Kael's gaze lingered on her, and in that moment, the world seemed to narrow to just the two of them. Everything else, the palace, the courtiers, the danger, faded. And yet, when he finally turned and melted into the shadows, leaving her alone, Aria realized with a jolt that she could not escape him. Not truly. The prince's obsession was not just his own. Her blood, her scent, her very existence had awoken something primal inside him, a hunger that would not be denied. And she, despite her fear, felt it too. Chapter 6: First Shift Night. The moon rose heavy and full, a silver eye watching over the Lycan palace. Everyone within the kingdom knew what the night meant. When the moon reached its peak, every Lycan of royal blood would shift, unleashing the beast beneath their skin. Aria had been warned to stay inside her room. Doors locked. Curtains drawn. No matter what she heard, do not come out. But the walls shook. A roar, deep, ancient, bone-splitting, ripped through the palace. It wasn't human. It wasn't even close. Aria froze. Her breath stilled in her throat. Then another sound echoed, this time softer, almost pained. A strangled growl, as if someone was fighting themselves, losing. Her heart clenched. Against all logic, against every warning. She stepped into the hallway. The lights flickered. Shadows danced. And at the end of the corridor, she saw him. Kael. Or what was left of him. His body convulsed, muscles tearing and expanding, bones snapping into place with sickening cracks. His claws punched through his skin, fur rising like black flames across his back. His head lifted. His jaw stretched, reshaped, fangs lengthening until they gleamed under the moonlight from the open hall window. Aria gasped, too loud. His ears twitched. His massive head swung toward her with impossible speed. Silver eyes. The same silver eyes she knew. But now blinding, glowing, predatory. Kael's wolf, he growled, a low, thunderous sound that vibrated through the floor. Aria instinctively backed up, but her heel hit a column and she froze. Because something changed. The wolf inhaled sharply. One breath. His entire body shuddered. Then the impossible happened. The monster's snarl faded. His massive form lowered to the ground slowly, cautiously, as if approaching something sacred. Aria didn't know what it meant. But the wolf did. He recognized her. Not as prey. Not as property. As something else. He stepped closer, nose brushing the air around her. The sound that rumbled from his chest wasn't rage. It wasn't hunger. It was acclaim. A deep, primal whine vibrated from him, as if calling to her. Aria's heart pounded violently. Fear tangled with something warmer, something ancient, something she didn't want to name. The wolf leaned in, nose nearly touching her neck. Then a blazing symbol flashed across his eyes. Her birthmark. Her scent. Her blood. Everything clicked for him in one moonlit heartbeat. Mate. A roar tore from his chest, not of anger, but of possession, of realization. The palace trembled with the sound. Guards scrambled, unsure whether to run or kneel. Aria stumbled back, shaking. Kael, the man who had bought her, caged her, terrified her. Had a wolf that looked at her like she was the center of the universe. Like she belonged to him in ways neither of them yet understood. Before she could speak, the wolf circled her once, protective, desperate. Then vanished into the night, leaving the corridors trembling behind him. Aria pressed a trembling hand to her chest. She wasn't supposed to see his shift. She wasn't supposed to survive being this close. She wasn't supposed to matter to him. But she did. And nothing would be the same again. Chapter 7, The Marking Instinct. Aria didn't sleep that night. Not after witnessing the monster inside Kael, not after seeing the way his wolf looked at her. Like she was destiny wrapped in human skin. By dawn, exhaustion weighed on her bones. But as she stepped out of her room, she froze. Kael was already there. Human again. Bare-chested. Eyes silver, not fully shifted, but not human either. He stared at her like he'd been waiting all night. Aria's breath hitched. His voice was rough, scraped raw by the transformation. You saw. Not a question. A verdict. Aria swallowed. I didn't mean. He stepped forward. One step. Another. Something in the air shifted. Heavy, electric, dangerous. Do you have any idea, he growled, what happens when a wolf sees his mate during a shift? Aria's heart slammed against her ribs. Mate? I'm not, I can't be. Kael didn't let her finish. His hand shot out, gripping her waist, pulling her flush against him. His breath burned against her throat. And then his eyes changed. Not silver. Not human. Something deeper. Older. Primal. A sound rumbled out of him. A growl that vibrated through her bones. Aria stiffened. Kael inhaled her scent, slowly, reverently, as if memorizing it. His lips grazed her neck, right where a mate mark would go. Kael, she whispered, trembling. But he wasn't Kael anymore. Not really. His voice was a rasp, barely human. Just one bite, one mark, and you're mine. His fangs grazed her skin. So close she felt the heat of him. Aria's vision blurred. Not with desire. With fear. Her survival instincts snapped. Her hand flew upward. Slap. The sound echoed like a whip crack. Kael stopped. Everything stopped. His head turned back to her slowly, too slowly, silver eyes blazing with shock and something darker. Aria stumbled back, heart hammering. You were going to mark me, without my consent. Kael touched his cheek. His jaw flexed. A muscle ticked dangerously. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. Low. Dark. Disbelieving. You slapped a Lycan Prince, he murmured. No one has ever dared. Aria swallowed hard. You were out of control. His amusement vanished. He stalked forward, crowding her against the wall. But he didn't touch her. Not this time. Instead, he leaned in, lips barely brushing her ear. You woke something in me, he whispered. Something I don't know how to tame. His breath shivered down her spine. My wolf wants you. A pause. And after tonight. I think I do too. Aria's knees nearly gave out. Kael stepped back, eyes still burning. You should be terrified of me, he said softly. But instead, you fight me. You defy me. His smile was lethal. And I find myself wanting more. Aria's pulse roared in her ears. Kael's final words rolled through her like thunder. I'm not finished with you, Aria. Not even close. Chapter 8, Secrets of Her Blood. Aria didn't make it far. One moment she was storming down the corridor, desperate to breathe. The next, her knees buckled. A sharp pain ripped through her spine. Then another. Then. She collapsed. Aria. Kael was at her side instantly, faster than human eyes could track. But she didn't hear him. Her body was burning. Her veins felt like liquid fire. Her bones like they were being rewritten. Her heartbeat, too fast, too loud. Kael reached for her, but the moment his hand touched her arm, her skin glowed. Not with warmth. With symbols. Ancient. Luminous. Alive. Kael froze, eyes widening as golden markings spiraled up her arms and across her collarbone like awakened constellations. No, he whispered, voice hollow with disbelief. This is impossible. Aria's back arched in pain, a cry tearing from her throat. Kael lifted her gently, cradling her against his chest. Aria, stay with me. Look at me. But her eyes were unfocused, pupils blown wide, as if she were seeing something he couldn't. The glowing symbols pulsed. Once, twice, syncing with her heartbeat. Kael's wolf surged beneath his skin, pacing, growling, desperate. Because he recognized the markings. Every Lycan did. Royal blood. Not just any royal blood. The blood of the marked line, the lost lineage said to be tied to prophecy, moonlight, and destiny. The bloodline Kael's ancestors feared. The bloodline that disappeared decades ago. And now, it was on a servant girl lying in his arms. Kael swallowed hard, emotions warring inside him, fear, awe, anger, protectiveness. Aria, he said again, his voice shaking for the first time. What are you? Her lips trembled. I don't know. A bright flash burst under her skin, illuminating the hallway in blinding gold. Kael shielded her instinctively, pulling her closer as the light wrapped around them like a cocoon. Then, as suddenly as it began, the glow faded. Aria went limp, unconscious. Kael held her, breathing hard, heart hammering. His wolf whispered one word, ancient and reverent, mate. Kael stared down at her, realizing the truth he had refused to see. She wasn't just a slave. She wasn't just a girl from the auction. She was destiny handed to him by the moon itself. And destiny was glowing beneath her skin. Chapter 9, The Council's Threat. Aria woke to the sound of raised voices. Harsh. Accusing. Echoing through the marble halls like thunder. She pushed herself up weakly, still shaken from the awakening of whatever pulsed beneath her skin. Then she heard it. Kael's voice. Cold. Lethal. On the edge of snapping. Aria moved toward the corridor, heart pounding. She is dangerous, Prince Kael, one councilman snarled. A servant girl manifesting lost royal symbols? This is treason of blood. Another voice, older, crueler, cut in, she must be executed before the blood moon rises. That is the only way to protect the throne. Aria froze. Executed. Her breath hitched. Her fingers trembled. A cold dread seeped into her bones. But Kael didn't tremble. He stood like a pillar of shadow and fury in the center of the throne room, silver eyes blazing. No one touches her, he said. Not a request. A command. The council erupted. She carries a forbidden bloodline. She could overthrow you. She is a threat to the kingdom. Kael's jaw flexed, muscles ticking as he fought to control his wolf. She is under my protection, he growled, and anyone who wishes to harm her will answer to me. You do not own the throne yet, boy, the High Counselor hissed. Your father's crown does not make you untouchable. Kael stepped forward with quiet, terrifying certainty. I don't need a crown to kill you. Silence. Deadly. Heavy. Absolute. Aria's breath caught. The councilmen exchanged glances, fear flickering in their eyes. You cannot protect a girl whose blood threatens our laws, the High Counselor insisted. Kael's lips curved, not in a smile, but in a show of fangs. Watch me. His voice dropped, low and lethal. If you come for her, you come for me. Whispers exploded across the chamber. A prince had never publicly defied the council. Not for a servant. Not for anyone. Aria's chest tightened. He was risking everything. His throne. His name. His life. For her. Then the High Counselor slammed his staff to the floor. Very well. Defy us, he spat. But blood will spill before this ends. Kael moved so fast the room gasped. One moment across the floor, the next, gripping the counselor by the throat. Not her blood, Kael snarled, eyes glowing. Never hers. Aria couldn't stop the tear that slipped down her cheek. Because she realized, Kael wasn't protecting her out of duty. He was protecting her out of instinct. Out of something deeper. Something he couldn't name, but couldn't deny. The council stormed out, humiliated and furious. Kael stood alone in the silent chamber, chest rising and falling with rage he barely contained. Aria stepped from the shadows. His head snapped toward her. Their eyes met. And for the first time, the cold, ruthless Lycan Prince looked almost vulnerable. Aria, he breathed. I won't let them take you. Chapter 10, The Prince's Enemy. Aria had barely recovered from the council confrontation when the palace bells rang. Not softly. Not ceremonially. Alarm bells. The sound shook the walls. Aria's stomach twisted. She rushed toward the balcony overlooking the courtyard, only to stop dead. A crowd had gathered. Hundreds of Lycans. Nobles. Soldiers. Servants. And at the center of the chaos stood a man she knew only by whispers, Lycan. Kael's cousin. The kingdom's favorite golden son. And the one man Kael openly hated. Lycan was everything Kael was not, smiling where Kael scowled, charming where Kael glared, deceptive where Kael was brutally honest. He raised his hands, addressing the crowd with theatrically tragic sorrow. My people, Lycan called out, voice ringing like poisoned honey, there is something you must know. Something the prince has been hiding. Aria felt her heart stop. No. No, no, no. Lycan reached into a velvet pouch and pulled out something glimmering with faint gold. A parchment. Old. Ancient. Marked with the same symbols that had burned beneath Aria's skin. The resurrected bloodline of a marked princess, Lycan announced. It has returned. Gasps filled the courtyard. Aria staggered back from the balcony's edge, horror flooding her veins. He wouldn't. He couldn't. Lycan's next words pierced through her like a blade, and the bearer of this bloodline is here. In this palace. Hidden by Prince Kael. Whispers erupted like wildfire. Aria felt her knees weaken. Lycan's eyes gleamed, cold, triumphant, cruel. Her name, he declared, is Aria Vale. The courtyard erupted into chaos. Shouts. Fear. Rage. A threat to the throne. Witch blood. Monster. Find her. Aria stumbled away from the balcony, heart racing so violently she could barely breathe. Her identity wasn't just exposed. It was weaponized. She wasn't just a servant anymore. She was a hunted prophecy. Footsteps thundered toward her, guards, nobles, strangers ready to tear her apart out of fear and ignorance. Aria turned. And slammed into a broad, familiar chest. Kael. His eyes glowed with feral silver fury, wolf already rising beneath his skin. Lycan, he growled, voice vibrating with lethal promise, has signed his death sentence. Aria's breath hitched. Kael, they know. Everyone knows. I will not let them touch you, he said, grabbing her hand, pulling her behind him. His grip was iron. Protective. Possessive. Behind them, the crowd began to storm the palace halls. Kael pulled Aria close, lips brushing her ear as he whispered, You're not just a target now, Aria. A pause. A breath. A truth vibrating with destiny. You're the key to everything. He lifted her into his arms as the palace shook with uproar. And Aria realized. The kingdom wasn't afraid of her bloodline. They were afraid of what she could become. Chapter 11, Kidnapped. Aria never saw the attack coming. One moment she was pressed against Kael's side, trying to keep up as he dragged her through the hidden passages of the palace. The next, a cold hand clamped over her mouth. A sharp sting shot through her neck. Her gasp was swallowed by the darkness. Kael spun toward her. Too late. A swirl of shadows engulfed her, and she was yanked backward into a hidden corridor. Aria. Kael's roar shook the walls, primal and murderous. But the world was already fading. Her vision blurred. Her limbs weakened. Her breath thinned. The last thing she saw before darkness swallowed her whole was Lucian's smile. A smile of triumph. A smile of possession. A smile that promised nothing but suffering. She woke to chains. Cold metal bit into her wrists. Damp stone pressed against her back. A dungeon, deep beneath the old palace, where daylight didn't exist and screams never reached the surface. Aria blinked through the haze, pulse pounding. Lucian stood a few feet away, hands clasped behind his back like he was admiring artwork. "My dear Aria," he said softly. "You have no idea how valuable you are." She tried to speak, but her throat burned from whatever poison he used. Lucian crouched beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Your blood," he whispered, "contains the power to control Lycans. Ancient power. Lost power. And I will use it to take the throne." Aria jerked away, fury and fear twisting inside her. "You won't win," she rasped. Lucian smiled. That same cold smile that haunted her last conscious moment. "I already have. Your prince is predictable. Emotional. Weak where you are concerned." He leaned closer, his breath chilling against her ear. "He will come for you." Aria's stomach clenched. Because she knew it was true. Kael would come for her. And Lucian was counting on it. Chapter 11, Kidnapped. Aria never saw the attack coming. One moment she was pressed against Kael's side, trying to keep up as he dragged her through the hidden passages of the palace. The next, a cold hand clamped over her mouth. A sharp sting shot through her neck. Her gasp was swallowed by the darkness. Kael spun toward her. Too late. A swirl of shadows engulfed her, and she was yanked backward into a hidden corridor. Aria. Kael's roar shook the walls, primal and murderous. But the world was already fading. Her vision blurred. Her limbs weakened. Her breath thinned. The last thing she saw before darkness swallowed her whole was Lucian's smile. A smile of triumph. A smile of possession. A smile that promised nothing but suffering. She woke to chains. Cold metal bit into her wrists. Damp stone pressed against her back. A dungeon, deep beneath the old palace, where daylight didn't exist and screams never reached the surface. Aria blinked through the haze, pulse pounding. Lucian stood a few feet away, hands clasped behind his back like he was admiring artwork. "My dear Aria," he said softly. "You have no idea how valuable you are." She tried to speak, but her throat burned from whatever poison he used. Lucian crouched beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Your blood," he whispered, "contains the power to control Lycans. Ancient power. Lost power. And I will use it to take the throne. Aria jerked away, fury and fear twisting inside her. You won't win, she rasped. Lycan smiled. That same cold smile that haunted her last conscious moment. I already have. Your prince is predictable. Emotional. Weak where you are concerned. He leaned closer, his breath chilling against her ear. He will come for you. Aria's stomach clenched. Because she knew it was true. Kael would come for her. And Lycan was counting on it. Chapter 12, Blood Moon Hunt. The forest trembled beneath him. Kael moved like a living storm. Silent, deadly, unstoppable. Claws tore into the earth, sending dirt flying in his wake. Branches snapped as his massive Lycan form crashed through the undergrowth. Silver eyes burned like twin moons cutting through the darkness. His wolf was fully unleashed. No restraint. No reason. Only the hunt. Only Aria. Her scent. Soft, warm, unmistakably hers. Was threaded with fear and blood. And that drove Kael deeper into madness. His snarl echoed through the trees, scattering animals for miles. Every beat of his heart screamed one truth: she is mine. The blood moon hung above the forest like a crimson omen, painting his fur red as he sprinted toward the mountains. Lycan was clever, but not clever enough to hide from Kael's wolf. He followed Aria's scent through the pines, down ravines, across streams where the water barely masked her trail. Nothing slowed him. He scaled cliffs. Leapt over chasms. Ripped through fallen trunks. He was more beast than royal blood now. A monster crafted for one purpose: to kill anyone between him and his mate. A hiss of wind carried a faint whisper of her voice. Kael. His massive paws skidded to a halt. Ears flicked forward. Breath held. Heart thundered. She was close. He threw his head back and unleashed a roar so powerful the mountain swallowed it and spat it back in trembling echoes. Then he ran. Faster. Harder. Driven by a desperation that burned through every muscle. His mind was a frenzy of violent images. Aria chained, hurt, terrified. And each one made him sprint faster, until the forest blurred around him. A scent hit him then, sharp, metallic. Lycan. And beneath it. Blood. Aria's blood. Kael's vision went white with rage. He didn't slow, he exploded forward. Trees collapsed in his path. Rocks shattered under his claws. The moonlight stoked the fury in his veins until it burned like fire. Through the clearing ahead, he saw it, a ruined temple in trance carved into the mountainside. Dark. Forbidden. Alive with ancient magic pulsing in the air. Kael lowered himself, muscles rippling, breathing hard. Inside those walls, Lycan waited. Aria waited. Kael's lips curled back, revealing deadly fangs dripping with anticipation. There was no strategy. No diplomacy. No mercy. Only the hunt. He launched himself toward the entrance, a silent shadow of death streaking across the moonlit ground. Lycan had taken his mate. Kael was going to take everything from Lycan. And the blood moon watched silently, hungry for the bloodshed to come. Chapter 13, Bloodbound Fury. The cavern shook with Lycan's chanting. Aria hung from iron chains, wrists raw, head slumped forward as crimson lines of her blood dripped into the glowing ritual runes beneath her feet. Her vision blurred, symbols pulsed, the air crackled, and Lycan's smile widened. Just a little more, he murmured, gripping her chin. Your blood is the key to everything. A deep rumble, then another. Like the growl of a mountain splitting in half. Lycan froze. The torches flickered. The air temperature dropped. Kael had arrived. Not the prince. Not the man. The Lycan. A towering silhouette appeared at the cave entrance, silver eyes burning like molten storms. His fur was ink black, dusted with shimmering ash. His claws dragged against stone, sparks flying with every step. Then, a roar. A roar that made the cavern tremble, that made Lucian stagger back, that made Aria's chains rattle from pure force. Impossible, Lucian whispered, stepping away from the ritual circle. He didn't control the shift, he embraced it. Kael didn't speak. He couldn't. His wolf had taken full command. And his wolf wanted one thing. Aria. Lucian summoned his warriors, shadows erupting from every corner, but Kael tore through the first three before their blades even touched him. Bones cracked. Screams echoed. Blood splattered across the stones. Kael moved with terrifying precision, an apex predator in a blind rage. Every strike was lethal. Every growl was a promise of destruction. Kael, stop. Aria tried to shout, but her voice came out broken, shaking. But he heard her. Even drowning in fury, he always heard her. Lucian attempted to flee deeper into the cavern, but Kael tackled him, teeth sinking into his shoulder. Lucian shrieked, darkness erupting from his hands as he escaped in smoke, but Kael didn't chase. His priority, his obsession, his mate. Kael stalked toward Aria slowly, chest heaving, claws still dripping with enemy blood. His wolf's eyes glowed fiercely as he sniffed the air, inhaling her scent. Fury. Terror. Possession. Relief. All swirling in one primal storm. He reached for the chains and snap. Shattered with one pull. When Aria collapsed forward, weak and trembling, Kael caught her before her knees touched the ground. His massive arms scooped her up gently, as though she were made of glass. She felt him shaking. Kael. The terrifying Lycan Prince. Shaking, he buried his face in her neck, breathing in her scent like it was the only thing keeping him alive. A low whine escaped him, raw, desperate, vulnerable. Kael, she whispered, fingers brushing his fur. He only held her tighter, as if letting go meant losing her forever. The cave around them burned, warriors dead, the ritual destroyed, but in Kael's trembling embrace, Aria finally felt safe. Chapter 14, The Bond That Shouldn't Exist. Kael didn't shift back. Not even after the blood stopped dripping from his claws. Not even after Lucian escaped. Not even when the cave finally fell silent. He carried Aria through the burning forest in full Lycan form, cradling her against his massive chest like she was something sacred. His steps were heavy, controlled only by the thin thread of sanity he clung to. Every few seconds he lowered his head to sniff her. Checking she was alive. Checking she was safe. Checking she was still his. Aria's fingers curled weakly into his fur. Kael, you can put me down. A deep growl vibrated through his body. She took that as a no. By the time they reached the palace gates, guards dropped to their knees, heads bowed. No one dared speak. No one dared move. The prince had never looked more terrifying. But he walked past them without a single glance, heading straight to his private wing. Stone doors slamming open with the force of his shoulder. Inside the chamber, Kael finally stopped. He lowered Aria onto his bed, sprawling furs, dark silks, and warmth radiating from the fireplace he kept burning year-round. She winced as her wounded wrists touched the blankets. Kael froze. His massive body quivered before shrinking inward. Bones cracked. Fur receded. And within seconds, the man stood before her. Bare-chested. Breathless. Eyes blazing silver. He looked at her like he had nearly died. Like he still might. Aria, his voice broke, raw, hoarse, strangled. He touched you. Aria swallowed. Kael. He chained you, he growled, pacing the floor like a caged storm. He took you from me. I'm okay, she whispered. You're not. His fists tightened so hard his knuckles whitened. Your scent was fading. I thought, his voice cracked again, quieter, almost a whisper. I thought I lost you. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Charged. Aria had never seen him like this. Not furious. Not dominant. Not the prince. But, afraid. She shifted on the bed. Kael, listen to me. No, he knelt in front of her, gripping the edge of the mattress as if anchoring himself. The bond reacted. Stronger than it should. Stronger than it's ever been. Her heartbeat stuttered. What bond? Don't make me say it, he murmured, head bowed, breath shaking. Kael. His eyes lifted, glowing silver, pupils blown wide like a starving wolf. You're mine. Not a question. Not a plea. A truth his very soul believed. Aria's breath caught in her throat. No. This couldn't be happening. Impossible. Forbidden. Lycan royalty did not bond to girls with unknown bloodlines. But Kael continued, voice low and reverent, my wolf recognized you the night of the first shift. He chose you. I tried to resist, to ignore it, to deny it. But when Lycan took you, his jaw clenched, it broke something in me. Her pulse raced. Kael, she whispered, I'm not your mate. But he only smiled, slow, dark, knowing. You can lie to yourself, he said softly. But I felt what happened in that cave. His hand reached toward her cheek, and stopped a breath away, trembling with restraint. The bond awakened when your bloodline did. Bloodline. Aria sucked in a sharp breath. You saw the symbols? Kael nodded once, eyes darkening with the memory. Aria, he whispered, voice dropping into something dangerously soft. What are you? She didn't answer. Because she didn't know. Kael exhaled shakily, moving his hand to finally touch her cheek, thumb brushing her skin as if reassuring himself she was real. You're staying here tonight, he said quietly. I'll station guards outside the door. She cut him off, barely above a whisper. Kael, please don't leave. His eyes widened. Just slightly. Then something inside him snapped. Not violently. Not possessively. But, tenderly. Protectively. He climbed onto the bed behind her, gathering her gently into his arms. She felt his heartbeat against her back, wild, uneven, desperate. Kael buried his face in her hair and whispered. I'm not leaving you ever again. And for the first time, Aria didn't want him to. Chapter 15, The Truth in Her Veins. The morning sun filtered through the tall palace windows, but Aria barely noticed. She lay curled against Kael, the warmth of his body still radiating through her as if it could shield her from everything outside the palace walls. Her bloodline had awakened, and the truth she had tried to ignore was no longer hiding beneath her skin, it had been written in glowing symbols, whispered by the pulse of the blood moon, recognized by Kael's wolf, and feared by the kingdom. Kael's eyes followed her every movement, silver and piercing, as if he could see the magic swirling beneath her flesh. Aria, he said, voice low, dangerous, and intimate all at once. Do you know what this means? She shook her head, fear and wonder mingling. It means, he continued, brushing a lock of hair from her face, that you are not just a servant girl stolen from obscurity. You are the last of the marked line. Your blood carries power older than my ancestors, older than this kingdom. Every Lycan will recognize it, every enemy will fear it, and I will protect it. And you. Aria's pulse quickened. But, what if I can't control it? What if it? Kael silenced her with a finger over her lips. Then I will control it with you. We will learn together. You are mine, Aria. My bond with you, it isn't a choice. It isn't negotiable. The blood moon, the prophecy, it all points to you and me. Her stomach fluttered, not with fear, but with a strange certainty, a deep recognition of something primal and inevitable. Kael leaned closer, lips brushing the shell of her ear. The council may hate it. Lucian may plot against it. The kingdom may tremble when they realize who you are, but they will never take you from me. Never. Aria trembled, not from fear but from the closeness of him, the way his presence seemed to anchor her soul. She had been hunted, kidnapped, chained, and threatened, and yet here, in the safety of his arms, she felt more alive than ever before. Kael pressed his forehead to hers. I feel it every time I touch you. My wolf feels it. My blood feels it. You are mine. And I am yours. A shiver ran through her. She couldn't deny it anymore. The bond pulsed beneath her skin, stronger than ever, intertwining her life with his. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. Then, if I am yours, Kael, I trust you. He smiled, dark, possessive, but soft. And for the first time in weeks, Aria allowed herself to believe it, that even in a world of danger, magic, and violence, there was a place where she could belong. And it was in his arms. Outside the palace, shadows stirred, whispers of enemies and prophecy alike. But inside, Kael held her close, a king protecting his queen, and a wolf guarding the mate his soul had chosen. The truth in her veins was no longer a threat. It was destiny. And it had brought her to him. Chapter 16, The Coronation Conspiracy. The palace gleamed under the first light of dawn, banners fluttering, soldiers lined with precision, and nobles murmuring in excitement. Today, Kael would be crowned king. Aria stood beside him, her pulse racing, not with fear, but anticipation. She had trained, learned, and grown into her bloodline. Yet, nothing had prepared her for the moment she would have to prove it. Kael's hand brushed hers lightly. His silver eyes scanned the room, unyielding, alert. Stay close, he murmured, almost a growl, the wolf beneath his skin stirring. Even here, they may strike. Aria nodded, tightening her grip on the folds of her gown. And then it happened. A shadow moved across the crowd, swift, silent. Daggers flashed in the sunlight. Screams erupted. Nobles scattered. Chaos swallowed the coronation hall. Kael reacted instantly, fangs bared, wolf claws extending. He was a storm of silver and rage, but the sheer number of attackers was overwhelming. Aria, he shouted. She froze for a split second, heart hammering, then something deep inside her roared. Her hands glowed faintly. Symbols along her arms flared to life, golden, luminous, alive. Her body trembled as the bloodline magic awakened fully. She could feel her wolf responding, sensing danger, drawing power from the moonlight streaming through the stained glass windows. Before Kael could reach her, she surged forward, faster than human eyes could follow. Her hands struck with a power that sent attackers flying. One by one, the assassins fell, thrown aside as if by invisible forces. Kael's eyes widened. Aria. She landed beside him, chest heaving, golden symbols still glowing. I can do this, she whispered, determination in her gaze. I can protect you. The wolf inside Kael roared in approval, feeling the bond intensify, her blood, her power, her courage, it all belonged to him. The last assassin lunged at Kael from behind. Aria's hand shot out, grabbing his arm and redirecting him safely away from the blade. In that instant, their eyes met, silver meeting gold, wolf meeting mate. And the bond clicked into place. Kael's grin was fierce, proud, and hungry all at once. You are mine. Don't forget it. Aria smiled faintly, exhausted but victorious. She had finally claimed her strength, her bloodline, and her destiny. The hall fell silent as the remaining attackers were subdued, the coronation continuing under Kael's protective shadow. But Kael didn't release her hand. Not once. Because he knew, she was no longer just his mate. She was a queen in her own right, a force intertwined with his power and his heart. And together, they were unstoppable. Chapter 17, The Lycan Throne. The throne room had never seen such a display of power and unity. Kael stood before the gathered nobles, silver eyes blazing, fangs flashing with quiet menace. His wolf lurked just beneath the surface, calm, restrained, but ready. Aria stepped forward beside him, her golden markings faintly visible beneath the folds of her ceremonial gown. Every eye in the room turned toward her. Whispers rippled through the crowd. A servant girl, no, a queen now stood beside the Lycan Prince. Kael's gaze swept the room. This is my queen, he said, voice carrying the weight of the throne and the promise of his wolf. Her bloodline is sacred. Her power is hers, and mine to protect. Anyone who questions it, will answer to me. The nobles exchanged uneasy glances. Some tried to bow, others hesitated. Kael's hand tightened around Aria's. Aria swallowed. Her pulse raced. She had feared recognition, exposure, conflict. But standing beside Kael, feeling his strength, his claim, she realized she had nothing to fear. Not from the world. Not from destiny. Not from him. Kael lowered his head, brushing his lips over the top of her hair. Do you understand? He whispered, almost too soft for anyone else to hear. You are mine. Your power, your blood, your life, all of it belongs to me. And I will never let anyone take you. Her lips curved into a small smile. I understand, and I accept it. The bond between them pulsed, a force neither of them could deny. Kael's wolf stirred, calm but powerful, intertwining with hers in a way that made every noble in the room aware, this was no ordinary claim. This was destiny realized. The coronation proceeded. Kael lifted the crown high, placing it on his head with one hand, while his other hand remained securely around Aria's waist. The silver moonlight streaming through the grand windows shimmered against the crown, casting an ethereal glow over the pair. Aria reached up, touching the crown lightly. It's beautiful, she whispered. Kael's grin was sharp, possessive, and full of pride. Not as beautiful as you. A collective murmur spread through the room. Even the most skeptical nobles could not deny the truth. Together, they were unstoppable. Together, they were a force of destiny. The Lycan Prince had claimed his throne. The marked bloodline had claimed its queen. And their bond, fierce, unyielding, eternal, was sealed under the silver moon. As Kael lifted her into his arms after the ceremony, Aria realized that fear had no place here. There was only power, passion, and an unbreakable connection that bound them forever. Outside, the kingdom waited. But inside that palace, in that moment, Kael and Aria ruled not just the throne, but each other's hearts. And the wolves within them roared in approval. Epilogue, Legacy of the Moon. Months had passed since the coronation. The palace had returned to a fragile peace, but for Kael and Aria, life had never been more alive. Aria stood on the balcony of their private wing, the silver moon casting a gentle glow over the forested kingdom below. Her hand rested lightly on her growing belly. A life, their life, stirred within her. Kael appeared behind her, broad-shouldered, commanding, yet softer than ever in his eyes. He wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin atop her head. "You're glowing," he murmured, his silver eyes softened by wonder and love. Aria smiled faintly. "It's not just the moon," she whispered. "It's you. Us." Kael's hands trembled slightly as he brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I've never felt anything like this. The bond, it's stronger now. Not just between us, but with the next generation. Our child will carry both our bloodlines, Lycan and marked. Powerful. Unstoppable." She leaned into him, feeling the warmth and strength of the wolf beneath his calm exterior. "I'm scared," she admitted softly. "But I trust you. I always will." Kael's lips pressed to her temple, and he whispered, fierce and protective, "No one will ever harm you. Not them. Not Lucian. Not anyone. You are mine. Our child is ours. And together, we'll face anything." Far below, the kingdom slept under the silver light of the moon. But above, on the palace balcony, the Lycan king and his queen stood together, united by blood, destiny, and an unbreakable bond. Aria rested her hand on her belly again, feeling the flutter of life. The prophecy was no longer a threat, it was a promise. A promise that the marked bloodline would endure. A promise that their love, fierce and eternal, would rule alongside the crown. A promise that under the silver moon, nothing, not even darkness, could sever what had been forged between them. Kael lowered his head, lips brushing hers in a gentle, possessive kiss. "The moonlight watches over us," he murmured. "And so do I, forever." Aria closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his embrace, the steady thrum of his heart, and the strength of their bond fill her completely. Under the silver moon, they were unstoppable. And their story had only just begun. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this journey with Kael and Aria, don't forget, there are many more powerful werewolf romances waiting for you on this channel. Please like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves supernatural love stories. Your support helps me bring more stories to life. See you in the next book.